everyone, and welcome to another episode of Metal Mastermind. I'm your host, Ken Candelas, and I'm here today with another dear friend, Ro Kohli of War Machine Merch. Hey, Ro, how are you?
I am doing very well. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous Sunday here in Los Angeles. And after the podcast, me and my wife and our friend are going to go hit the pool. So
That's
I'm very
amazing.
happy about that.
It's getting close to 4th of July at the recording of this video, so I'm actually gearing up myself. I've got the backyard all tended to. I've got everything. I got the grill checked out. I mean, it's all
Nice.
coming up, and yeah, I'm super excited. But today, we're not talking about the 4th of July. Rather, maybe what you might sell on the 4th of July, which is merchandise. So, merch. What is
Yes.
merch? You know, Ro, you are a really well-known guru and ambassador of a lot of different types of products and brands and manufacturers. And you're really a network that connects all of these things together. So what do you think merch means to someone like you? And what's your journey with that?
Well, I mean, merch for me. I mean, obviously, it's my livelihood. So there is that. It does keep the lights on and the cat's fed. However, when it comes to merch for me, the way I look at it nowadays, I always felt like I was on the cusp of kind of figuring it out a long time ago, but everything else sort of distracted me along the way. But now that I'm really neck deep into it, I really do see the connection between merch and so like solid plan marketing, like solid marketing campaigns where they, if you have the right merch to push your campaign, in my opinion, will go way further. So I started to really see a lot more of those nuances throughout my years. And that's kind of where I am now with merch, is that I look at merch not just as like, oh, it's a thing that you sell, or, you hire me to make pens for your event and here are your pens, enjoy. It's like, now to me, I feel like there's for myself at least, I feel like I have a much deeper understanding to how merch kind of works psychologically in a weird way, you know?
That's amazing. It's a very, very philosophical way of looking at merch, actually. You're taking on this idea which helps to sort of break the barrier of like not just the transactional portion of merchandise, but also what does it mean? How does it relate? How does it connect people to the thing that they love, right?
Right. And not only that, but it's like, you can even take a step further back, even because if you're a band, you're selling merch, like that's how you're trying to pay for gas money, and that's how you're trying to do all that kind of stuff. But let's say you're a brand, I'll tell you just a short story. I went to see Black Sabbath at the Forum. Yeah, I mean, a good couple of years ago, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, whatever it was. And they were you could tell that they had probably like maybe a boy band or something a couple like the day before or a couple of days before, so the Toyota booth was still kind of there, so they're trying to promote the new Prius to like a bunch of metalheads. It was Iron Maiden, not Sabbath, excuse me, it was Maiden though, but it was just like, all of these like, blue collar guys walking by and they're like, would you like to check out the new Prius? And everybody's like, what? No. But the thing is that they were handing out those, those little wallets that go on the back of your phone, right? And it just had a Toyota symbol on it. And I remember thinking about it, and I told my wife about it later. I was just like, our phones are like the most personal thing we own. Who is just going to slap a Toyota logo on there? Unless you are a straight, like, hardcore Toyota fan, like, you're not going to do that, So now it becomes about merch that you're just handing out just to hand out without any real idea of who you're giving it to, under this weird impression that, oh my God, everybody needs these phone wallets. Yeah,
Well,
but nobody needs it with a Toyota logo on it.
that's such a really important aspect to all of this. People think, I as a band, just we got to get something out there, and I think that's maybe a good first step to just learning the ropes and getting accustomed to what it's like to create merchandise. But as you grow and as you mature, so does your music, so does your concept. And those things
Right.
become ever more relatable to your audience. And you have to be a little bit now more thoughtful and provocative in the imagination in order to get something real, something exciting from your audience.
Yeah, and not only that, but you also want it to be something that your audience is going to utilize, something they're going to utilize, because again, when just because the merch has left your hands doesn't mean that's the end of the merch. The whole point of wearing merch, selling merch, is to keep that brand promoted. So when I'm wearing a t-shirt, that band, the artwork or the back, maybe it's a lyric or whatever, that's what needs to still promote that band's, branding narrative, but again, if you're just making stuff just to hand out, just for people to take and then throw away later, it's like, now you're missing the whole point, and you're wasting money, but you're missing the whole point of the whole thing.
Yes, it's a lack of attention to detail in what you're putting out there. Is it just more junk? Is it just going to accumulate in somebody's garbage, right? Does anybody really care? Like you were talking about this Toyota brand, right? Why are they going to get a Toyota brand phone case unless they're just a super nerd about Toyota? So in that case, right, let's talk about what's really practical and what creates an everlasting relationship between your brand and the consumer. And that's that's longevity.
That's exactly it. And it's not like, your promotional item or whatever has to have some, monumental impact in someone's life, but it's more about just being really practical about it, and also not thinking that your brand is God's gift to the world. Because that's what people end up doing is like, I used to work at Warner Brothers Records, and I remember the people there were so intent on pushing the Warner Brothers brand. And I'm like, other than Bugs Bunny and a few things like that, like nobody's going to be like, Warner Brothers Records, I need to buy that record. Like nobody's doing that, and to assume that everyone is because you're selling millions of records, but yeah, Prince is doing that. My Chemical Romance is doing that. Green Day is doing that. Those bands are doing that. Like nobody's like Warner Brothers Records. That's my label. Nobody's doing that. And because of that, like I think that becomes the big thing, is like how much pride people have in their brand, which is not a bad thing to have pride, obviously, but to think that no one else is going to penetrated or anything like that is always kind of funny to me. Just that people think like they think their brand is just this like microcosm where nothing exists outside of it. That's why I always find it to be funny when I go to a convention or a trade show and there's whatever 200, 300, 400 booths, right? If 10% of those booths have pens that they're giving out, you're walking away with 30 fucking pens. I'm sorry. Can I swear? I didn't realize.
Of course, definitely. Okay. This is metal.
Just making sure. I don't want anybody to get demonetized.
You're good.
But that's the thing. Is like if you're getting 30 or 40 pens, do you really care about pens anymore?
Right.
No, not at all. Like nobody cares about pens at that point. After 3 pens, nobody cares. But the fact that these companies and these brands think that they're going to be like, all right, cool, we got pens, everyone needs pens, but everyone doesn't need 80 pens. So to think that your pen is the only one that's going to be prominently displayed at this convention is that sense of like misplaced brand pride, where people aren't really thinking about that. They're just like, no, people need pens. Like they think about it in such a small world kind of way,
So Ro, in this case,
mm-hmm.
Let's backtrack for a second, because you're talking about something even more important here, which is branding and learning and understanding what branding does, right? For example,
right.
Why do we drink even Coca-Cola, right? Well, because not necessarily just its taste. Everybody might say, well, the taste is good, but you also trust that Coca-Cola will be consistent every time. That when you get that can, you know what you're getting, right? So that's the thing. And here, let's go a little bit deeper into what is a brand, and how does a independent artist that's learning the ropes, they're just basically getting around to kind of understanding what their sound is, right?
Right.
How do they start to look at reflection and portrayal of what their image and their message is into the world?
Right. I mean, that is I mean, for a lot of bands, that's a $64,000 question, is what are you going to do? And that's why when I talk to bands, when I do seminars, or when I teach classes about it, I always try to show people, not so much how to cut costs, but like more or less like how to challenge yourself more. I always tell people, like, come up with 3 ideas for items you'd like to sell that aren't a t-shirt, a hoodie, a hat, etc. Like, come up with 3 ideas. And they might go, okay, a lighter, a koozie, and a lanyard. And I go, great. Let's throw away those ideas. Come up with 3 different ones. Well, now they have to go, oh, well, okay, maybe a bottle opener, I don't know, like a keychain, and I don't know, a yo-yo. Okay, great. Throw away those ideas. Come up with 3 new ones. Because by the time you get to that second or third round, you got to really think about, like, shit, what else is out there? And then you start to really open yourself up to what's actually out there. But more importantly, I think people really need to look at their own environment. I always say that people have 5 different places where they use stuff: their bedroom, their bathroom, their kitchen, their office, and their car. Those are the 5 places. So if you can figure out what item is helpful in one of those 5 spots, then you actually are on the verge of possibly creating something that can have a longer lasting effect than just the one-to-one. Here's my item, here's my money, great, bye, and that's it.
Wow.
That's
the search of uniqueness.
Yeah, and also the search for practicality. So one of the things I like to tell bands is maybe consider air fresheners that you hang in your car. They're inexpensive, about $1, maybe $1.50 each. They don't cost very much, and if you sell them, you can sell them for $5, $8, make a large profit. It's something that's small that people aren't going to have to feel like they are investing in your band, because buying a t-shirt is still an investment, and if you're the first of 5 bands on a show, the odds of somebody buying your shirt are kind of slim. And that's not a diss by any means. It's just the reality of it. People want to spend their money on the headlining bands and or booze, Now, if you blow people away and they're like, I need a shirt, hey, fucking rock on, and more power to you, no doubt. But you have to kind of figure that most of the people who are going to be there, maybe they liked your band, but they don't want to invest in your band. So to have something like an air freshener, or even like a fridge magnet, where it's something that people are going to take, they're going to buy, and then put up in their car, or put it on their refrigerator, which is one of the main places that people are in their house or their apartment, is their fridge. So you wanted to have that kind of repeat, this kind of repeat visibility over and over again. And, living in Los Angeles, for me, I'm sitting in my car. All I'm looking at is an air freshener just spinning in front of me. So it's almost like you're almost automatically constantly branding to people while they're just sitting in traffic.
Yeah, that's genius. It's a very, like you said, it's a very practical way of thinking about it, because now you limit the amount of exposure to, let's say, oh, I don't know if this is going to be something that I actually want to invest in, right? Then that's as simple as a decision between $1 of a magnet or $25 for a t-shirt.
For sure.
So you're going to absolutely make it a lot easier. And I've seen some bands actually decide to do, some quick bundles and stuff like that in those moments as well, that if you decide that you want to buy the t-shirt, they'll give you the other stuff anyway. So it's a really great way of just extending a hand, an open handshake, so that the band, who, especially for indie bands that are maybe opening for a headliner, that those audience, that those members are not going to necessarily be there for them, but that exposure gives them an opportunity, and that is where you simplify it and you make it easy. And that's
not only that, not only that, but let's just say, hypothetically speaking, let's say you meet a radio programmer, or maybe you meet a fan who's just like, I really liked your band, but I don't have any money, that kind of thing. Something like that, an air freshener, a magnet, those are also just kind of like easy, like, here, man, just take this, which increases your bond with a new fan who's like, holy crap, he just gave me some of his merch for free. But it's also not something that's going to, wreck your wallet. That's why whenever a band throws a shirt into the crowd, like, a part of me dies every single time. Like, I don't care what you have to pay for that shirt. That shirt is still one of your biggest moneymakers next to a hoodie. Why would you throw your biggest profit maker into the crowd? Throw a magnet into the crowd, throw an air freshener, throw a koozie into the crowd. Why would you throw a shirt into the crowd?
Right. Or guitar picks.
What's that?
Guitar picks could be a good one to throw.
Right. Guitar picks are another thing, but same thing, even with guitar picks, even though I don't mind guitar picks, obviously, I love getting a guitar. You find a guitar pick on the floor of a show and you're just like, holy crap, like, my day is just made. I was actually at a club. We were just about done with our karaoke night, our metal karaoke night, and I found a Pat Benatar pick on the ground, and I felt great the rest of the night. Like, yeah, dude, But
amazing.
Again, it's like, but yeah, guitar picks, that kind of thing, just stuff like that. Like, that's an easy giveaway. That's not going to wreck your profit margins.
Right.
But when you're giving people a free shirt, or you're giving them a free hoodie or something, I'm like, whoa, dude, that hurts my chest. Like, that's, I mean, if you're going to be signed to some big merchandising company like Bravado or Global or something like that, then that's all well and good. You have your merch contract set up. I don't know how any of that works. I'm not even going to assume. But like, if you're just opening band number 4 on the bill, like, don't give away your shirts. Like, it's like, that's kind of the whole thing too, is when it comes to shirts also, and this is always a very touchy thing for me, is that, as adults, you're an adult, I'm an adult, you're a metalhead, I'm a metalhead. We've go to literally hundreds, if not thousands, of shows in our lifetime. We've collected black shirts like nobody's business. As an adult, if I get a lot of times people will be like, hey, do you want a free shirt? And I'm like, I really don't. Because I don't need more shirts, or at least I don't need more shirts that I myself haven't particularly chosen for myself. So if Monster Energy wants to give me a free shirt, I'm like, no thanks, give it to somebody else. Because as an adult, I'm allowed to determine what shirts I want to wear and what shirts I don't want to wear. So if I get your free promo shirt, or I catch your free shirt, there's a very good chance I'm not going to wear it, right, because I don't have to, whereas, so this way, it's not something that you're giving away willy nilly, it's like, like, again, it's like, that's why to me, like, giving out free promotional shirts, I'm like, dude, shirts are expensive.
Well, this is a great example of where resistance can actually be helpful, where not having always something always accessible, hence the name limited edition, makes something more valuable. And that's where I feel like, in not just in merchandise, but in a lot of things with just making music, it's creating a quality product that isn't found elsewhere, but it can stand on its 2 legs. Those should be a lot of the focus for many bands, especially
Absolutely.
in the beginning. Getting a good core product, which is, of course, your music, and then graduating from here to going into your brand, right? What are the things that accompany the music as a way that makes a connection? So I keep going. I love this.
And that's the thing for me too, is that I'm always a fan of make merch that ties into your band or your music. So even if you're making a t-shirt, cool, put whatever on the front. And then on the back, and this is just my own opinion for my own self, put a lyric on the back. Just a white print. You don't need to have all sorts of, I mean, you can do other stuff, but your lyrics are part of what make a band, whether you're a pop band or a metal band or whatever, it's those lyrics that we are listening to. That's the art that's accompanying the music art. So it's just as important. And you can't really have the riff of walk on the back of your shirt. You need respect walk. You need the words on there because the music is a different part of that experience. So, but to me, I'm also a fan of creating merch that directly correlates to the brand or to your single or to your album. So whatever, let's say hypothetically speaking, that your album is called Fire Walk With Me. Well, then if that's the case, then make stuff that has flames on it. That kind of thing, like kind of incorporate those aspects into it to give people that little frame of reference, because people need that little frame. That's the thing too. It's like, it always makes me laugh when people, especially bands, come to LA and they're like, everyone just stood there like this. And I'm like, nobody knows who you are. Like, they're not all just because just because when you play, your hometown in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, all 40 of your friends start a pit doesn't mean that it's going to be the same thing in LA, So it's like, to me, it's about, you have to be able to express yourself through that merch, and, let people go, oh, okay, cool. Like, he's playing a song called Fire. Okay, yeah, the song is called Fire Walk With Me. All right, cool. And then they go back to the merch booth and then they see Fire Walk With Me with flames, so again, that's a very simplistic example, but it's kind of where I'm going with it. It's like, if your album is Kill 'Em All, having the hammer and the blood and everything on your on your merch is something that's going to keep that in mind. So for instance,
it makes sense. It creates contingent continuity. Not
exactly. So when I was working at Century Media a long time ago, we would make logo stickers for our bands. And I remember being like, okay, I love God Forbid, awesome dudes, best dudes ever. But I was like, God Forbid is just a slogan that people say. So if that's all your sticker says, there's nothing that connects it to a metal band by any stretch of the imagination. It's just, oh, God forbid. What can you, I might as well have a band called What Can You Do? And just put a bumper sticker that says, what can you do? And you're like, oh, I guess, what can you do? But if you, so what I started doing was going, hey, instead of us using those stickers to Street Team, which doesn't say anything, let's change it up. Instead of a 4x2 sticker that just says God forbid, let's make it a 4x4 sticker or maybe 3x3 sticker of the album art with their logo nice and big. So now when people see it sniped up places, if they happen to go into a record store or something like that, now there's at least potentially an increased, possibility of them putting two and two together when they see it.
Right.
That kind of thing, as opposed to just assuming that everyone knows where to go and what they're doing.
Yeah. You gotta leverage your assets as best as you can. And right. That's a very good thing that really comes from a world of graphic design. I'm a big fan of graphic design. I've been actually a graphic designer since high school. And this was something that was such a, you have to really hone in on this. And that's exactly making sure that when people see your product on repeat, even if it's just a sticker here or a magnet there,
right?
Those repetitions add to the familiarity, and that's exactly where we build trust.
Right, as opposed to just being like, God forbid. I just tell you, God forbid. There's nothing behind it.
Yeah, you have to make it connect.
You have to make
that makes sense.
Has to be a connection, and you can't be like. That's why I really hate it when bands do this, and my favorite bands even do this. But when they're like, "Well, it's up to everyone's interpretation," and I'm like, "No, the reason I'm listening to your band is because I want your interpretation of what it is. Like, right. I don't want to have to figure this part out. Like, I want to enjoy this record or enjoy this song, and not wonder what you're singing. Put the lyrics in the damn record so I know what the fuck you're saying, And so that's why it's another thing too. And I'll just throw this out there. It has nothing to do with merch, but it does at the same time. I always think that bands, especially metal bands, should, especially in this day and age where buying an LED or QLED TV is not really that crazy expensive, and doing graphic design, doing AI art, that kind of thing is not crazy now, is to just have the lyrics to all your songs on like TVs behind you during the show, Because if this is your first, like the first time you play in LA or the first time you play in Tampa, Florida, or whatever, nobody there knows who you are. You're simply opening up for their favorite local band, you know?
Right.
But if you can get the crowd to sing along and they know the lyrics that are right behind them, that's just like when we watch shows with subtitles. That's how
Right.
we understand it better. That's how we know. That's how I know Simpsons quotes for years, because I just
Brilliant.
look at the closed captioning, you know.
Yep.
But especially if it's a repeated phrase or a repeated chorus, you know, or something like that, or something that the crowd can sing along to, now it's going to stick. And then on
Right.
top of it, now you go to the merch booth and your merch has lyrics that they just read,
Right.
you know.
Perfect.
And again, and we don't know what lyrics are going to affect what person on what kind of level at any given time. But if you're just screaming rock, 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 and you're just, you know, growling, hey, I love a good growl, I love a good scream, but if I know what's behind that lyrically, then now it's like, okay, that could either maybe up my anger or maybe make me remember a situation that pissed me off that I needed to overcome, or what. Then it affects me, you
Yeah.
know. And so that's something that I'm always telling bands is like, your lyrics are what set your metal band apart from every other metal band. So if you have something, that's why, like, it's funny, like a band like Acid Bath, one of my favorite bands of all time, you know, but they have one shirt that's got one lyric on the back. And if you read the lyrics for either of their two records, dude, you'll find 50 different quotes that you're like, I would want that on the back of our shirt. I would want that on the back of a shirt. I would want that on the back of a shirt. I made my own shirt, my own Acid shirt. That's what an Acid nerd I am. But I made my own with one of their lyrics on the back. And whenever I wear it to one of the Acid shirt shows, people are like, where did you get that shirt? I'm like, I had to fucking make it because the band wouldn't, you know. But that's kind of it. It's like, and again, it's nothing against the band. I think the band sometimes doesn't realize just how much their lyrics have impacted so many people.
That's a
You know?
that's a really beautiful approach to taking another level above what you currently are. And that's a way that you can do it through means of production. I mean, that's a
Right.
workable goal, right? If your band doesn't have anything visual right now on
Right.
stage for live shows, I mean, living in a modern age where so many people rely on visuals,
Right.
having a simple lyric video that's made with artificial intelligence as a tool to help
Right.
portray your vision,
Exactly. That's
that
why
is
I don't
amazing.
mind. Like, it's funny because people are like, well, don't you hate that AI is doing this and doing this and doing that? And I'm like, yeah, but anybody, any self-respecting anybody, like whether you're an artist or a writer or a graphic designer, no one, you know, you're a graphic designer. You're not going to be like, I'll just AI this one. Like, just on principle, you'd be like, no, like that's wrong every which way. I used to write and publish my own magazine. I've written for a ton of other magazines, but the idea of like, dear chat, you know, chat GPT, please write a Megadeth review. I would never ever consider that any more than any self-respecting musician would be like, hey, chat GPT, make my new song. You know, no metal band would ever do that. So it's like you said, as a tool though, for instance, while I love graphic design, I am by far not a graphic designer. I am like, I'm on the short bus for graphic designers. I cannot do it. I am no good at it. So for me, if I need something created quickly and you know, I can't pay, maybe I don't have the budget for a graphic designer, then yeah, using AI as a tool, yes. You know, using it
Well,
as a crutch, using
you know,
anything as a
here,
crutch other than crutches is not a good
well,
idea.
yeah, and I totally agree, and I think even I was working with a very good friend of mine, Wayne Joyner, who's an amazing artist. And Wayne, he's been very open about it, but he uses as a tool. These
Right,
are things that, and what I love about it is that when I get Wayne to do my stuff, it's Wayne's ideas and
right.
Wayne's, you know, vision put together that elevate the message that I was trying to create, which I couldn't on my own. And
That's
so
exactly it.
that's the beauty of what we're talking about here, guys.
That's
So
exactly
don't
it.
be
It's
afraid of
using
this kind of stuff.
right, and that's kind of it. It's using it as a tool, you know, because again, if you're a poor band, yeah, maybe you can't pay a video graphics guy $500 an hour, or maybe $2,000 for the whole maybe you don't have that kind of budget, so you do have to work within your means, you know. But I, like I said, to me, it's all about connecting all of those things, and I always find it that a lot of bands just don't create that sort of cohesiveness. Typically, I've seen that they don't necessarily create this kind of cohesiveness that I feel is really, really important.
Now, I have a question for you, Ro.
Shoot.
What are your thoughts for a band starting off with e-commerce versus trying to get their own merch on their own and then bringing that to a show before going into online? What are your thoughts about the approaches of both?
Okay, so there's like, obviously, if you're a metal band, especially, metal fans love physical media, no matter what. You know, so if you're gonna go to it, that's why any band that plays a show and doesn't have merch, I'm just like, that's the most wasted opportunity you could possibly have. You can always make something stupid and something cheap quick. You know, you can always do that. There's always a way to skin that cat. I've had to do it a million trillion times. It's not beyond the realm of anything like that. But you should always have merch at a show. You know, maybe you don't have shirts or hoodies and, the expensive stuff, but you can get, you can get some koozies. You can get something so that people can come to your thing. Or, I mean, you can go to a print shop and print out posters that just are like, hey, our band playing at the Whiskey A Go Go on May 20th, do like a show event poster. Like, there's so many inexpensive things that people can do that don't cost that much. And yet people are like, no, we didn't have the money. And it's like, what, you didn't have $30, dude, to make some posters? Like, it doesn't cost that much, And so that's kind of the way I look at it is, if you're playing a live show, you have to have physical merch. You have to, nobody cares about your download, because again, when it comes to music, in my opinion, if you charge nothing for it, people will think it's worth nothing.
Yeah, I agree with that statement.
I actually, when I was managing a band a long time ago, great band called Black Chapel. We were giving out their demo at San Diego Comic-Con at my booth and trying to get people to check it out and listen to it and watch some of the videos and stuff.
Very cool.
No one would take it for free. No one.
Wow.
But they took it for $5.
Amazing.
When we put it at $5, we sold 80 copies.
Jesus.
Trying to give it away, nothing. Very, very few people were like, I guess I'll take it. At $5, we sold so many of them that we were like, this was so stupid. But that really taught me that lesson of when it comes to music, if you are just giving it away, then it's almost like you yourself don't have a whole lot of pride in it.
Right.
If you wanted to give it value, you would give it value.
Absolutely.
That kind of thing. So, yeah. And so that's what I realized, back in the day when I was doing street marketing, I didn't realize it at the time. We're handing out thousands and thousands of CD samplers. And what I started realizing, unfortunately, way after the fact was like, if everyone's special, no one is special.
So, with all of this considered, I mean, do you think that merchandise and how it relates to its platform is sort of irrelevant? It's all how you use it, how you implement it, how you be creative with it in a way that creates lasting memories. Right. And whether that is as simple as just a poster at a show of the show that you're doing, or, it could be a pin or something that you gave as a personal token. Who knows? Right. These are walkaways. Right.
But you want to still make sure that even if it is a pin or a button, it's like you want to make sure that it's something that people A, want, and B, are they going to use it beyond that point? I was saying before about certain conventions and stuff that I go to where, they'll give you a lapel pin for like I went to CES a couple of years ago and this one new company was giving out a lapel pin with their logo on it. And I'm like, nobody knows who your company is, dude. Why would anybody put your logo on anything of theirs when nobody has any idea who you are? It's the same thing when people hand out buttons at comic conventions and horror conventions. I'm like, I get that you're trying to promote it, but if nobody has any kind of emotional connection to your band, why should they sport it?
Right.
that kind of thing. So that's why whenever people give me free buttons, I'm just like, okay, like it's literally like, here, you throw this away. It's like, okay, fine. Like that's why a lot of times I just won't take it. People are like, oh, just take it just to be nice. And I'm like, no, it's wasting their money. It's wasting my time. Why would I do that? Now, you asked something earlier that I wanted to go back to, which is e-commerce versus physical commerce. Now, there's pros and cons when it comes to e-commerce, because you can do a cafe press kind of situation where, yes, you can put your logo on an apron and a onesie for a toddler, or I don't know, whatever else, a water bottle. You can do all that stuff, but number one, you have to hope that there's a fan base out there that wants to pay this elevated price to have your logo on whatever item. Secondly, one of these print on demand places, one of the things that they are doing is, because they're just doing it one at a time, they're taking the lion's share of any kind of profit. So then you have to really weigh out in your head, like, okay, well, do we invest in our own and make our own profit, or do we give the control to somebody else and make less profit and probably sell less merch? Because again, you can throw your logo on 80 billion different items. When you're a fan and you see that, you're just like, all right, like, that's cool, I guess. But like what you were saying about making things limited, I'm a big fan of that. As a collector of, Star Wars and Kiss and all these kinds of things, you tell me something's limited to 100 pieces, I'm going to get in line for that.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it also, is that there's so much merch out there that you could make different merch for literally every show for the rest of your life. And you'll never go back to the first thing you made. Because there's so many millions of different things you can make, dude. I can make you ping pong, ball paddles. I can make you ping pong balls. I can make you, freaking cutting boards and knives and, cookware and drinkware. Like, you could make something forever. And for a lot of things, the minimum's like 100 pieces. So wow. To me, if you just go, hey, on this tour, we're making this particular shot glass only 100. Once we're done with 100, we're going to make something different. Well, now people are going to be like, well, I want one of those 100.
Right.
Or maybe, I want 5 of those 100, and then yes. Maybe they'll look at it like, oh, maybe I can sell this on the secondary market and maybe make some money for myself. But at the same time, even if a fan is going to do that, buy 10 of your things and sell it on the secondary, to me, that's fine also, because that means that they're providing a need for another fan that's out there to keep your brand going. That's why it always kills me when people are like, well, I'm just going to sign it. You're going to throw it on eBay. Yeah, who fucking cares? Your name is the one that's going to keep progressing from that point on. Yes, right. Maybe your signature made that person you gave it to $100, $200, maybe $500 or something. Fucking cares? Your name is the one that's propagating from here. There's a Luke Skywalker fan who is so stoked that he got Mark Hamill's friggin' autograph for $800. I don't know why that would bother Mark Hamill. What difference does it make? Right. What you have right now is someone who continues to be a Star Wars fan and continues to be a Mark Hamill fan, and now is even more so of one because they just got something they've wanted forever.
Well,
I don't think that's a bad thing.
This has been such an enlightening conversation, Ro. And to our audience, I think it's fair to say that one of the biggest things that you can, I think, take away from what we're talking about is making something that has lasting impact, thinking about the connections that you take, not just with your audience, but beyond your audience, your audience's own connections and how they propagate over into a new, perhaps, fan. These are things that we have to be aware of as artists, as independent artists, especially, who have to learn the ropes of the games ourselves. So, Ro, I want to thank you very much for coming on today's podcast. This has been so much fun, and I've certainly learned a lot, and I always learn a lot every time I talk to you. So
I appreciate that. Really I appreciate you letting me do this too, man. This was great.
And shout out to your team over that did the Roadrunner Records party. That was so much fun. Thank you for having me come over. It was good to see you.
I like that you called it a team. it was literally me and Jim.
Well, you know what? cheers to that, you know, because you guys are doing something special and I
Yeah,
love it.
it's
So
yeah, we're excited about it. I mean, it's still an ongoing an ongoing project, and one that I hope we'll see, a conclusion this year. But I'm hoping that I can do kind of like what we were just talking about with the branding and everything. I'm hoping that I have the free reign and the budget, especially to make some really cool stuff happen with this. So
that's
be on the
amazing.
lookout. That Roadrunner Records documentary, I'm hoping is going to be super lit. It already looks great from some of the edits I've already seen, but I know we still want more. We want more perspectives. We want more people. You know, yeah. There, it's funny because with that, it's like I keep coming up with ideas, and the director and filmmaker Jim is just like, slow down. I'm like, no, we can do this, we can do this, and and he's just like, it's like I get very excited about it, but at the same time, I also know that somebody's got to kind of rein me in as well.
Well,
Like,
Ro, where can people find more about War Machine and what you do? And
sure. I mean, we're on most of the socials, War Machine merch. And we also have WMM custom action figures on Instagram and Facebook and such. So if you're ever interested in making custom action figures or Funko Pop type figurines, that is what we do. So we can do all sorts of fun stuff. But yeah, we make merch. We make a lot of merch. So if you need help with
fantastic.
merch, my job is to help you make it and not break your wallet.
Says the guy with all the figurines in the back. So I love
Right.
it. Ro, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
And
very
for
much, Ken.
everybody else, don't forget metalmastermind.com. You'll find all of our courses in the description below. And so always remember that in all of this, don't forget to create your own sound.